Okay, so up front, the caveat before we commence this short PME session is that these are basic considerations and a way of conducting a war game. It's not the way. So what we're going to do first is outline the key positions and how to set up the war game itself. At the head of the table is the Chief of Staff. The reason why this is vital is that the Chief of Staff controls the war game. He is able to look at each of the participants, the scribe, and also the synchronisation matrix and the run sheet. A way of doing it is having the S2 and the S3. In terms of where they go, is simply based off the map orientation and where the bulk of their forces are. But what must occur is that they must be close to the Chief of Staff for ease of dialogue at the end of each turn if required. Flanking the S3 are his BOS advisors. The key thing here is that you can have as many as you need based on the complexity of the operation itself. The key point with stage management are that these BOS advisors are invested at the table, able to see the map. Okay, so the scribe. The scribe in this particular example is located off to a flank. In this example, it's simply linked to the IT structure. Wherever possible, the scribe needs to be able to see the synchronisation matrix, which in this room would be projected onto this screen here. Ultimately, the scribe needs to be able to converse with the Chief of Staff and fix any amendments or clarify any set amendments. A key point that occurs with the scribe is that a person is placed into that position, not invested into the plan. A way of doing it is having one of your ops captains, say in a formation setting, and cascading down into battle group, someone that's been invested in the planning process so that they're familiar with the terminology and the general scheme of manoeuvre as the Chief of Staff is guiding the process. Moving back to the synchronisation matrix here, as stated, a way of doing it is having it slaved. The key point here though is that the Chief of Staff is directly able to see the inputs that the scribe is typing. Handy is a run sheet for ease of the Chief of Staff and general participants. A reference to DEs, critically, when are they achieved, if not why, and how they're going to be remediated. And then a series of CDPs that the Chief of Staff can use to reinforce the commander's intent. Another handy tool is having the colour comparison criteria up front. A way of doing it is linking DEs with the relevant considerations for the particular mission profile that you're wargaming, but ultimately these are going to be dependent on what the commander wants. It's his call. What we're trying to do here is give you a set of tools so that you can pick the right ones based on the commander of the day. What we're now going to go into is just a couple of discussion points. Now these should be primer for discussion for when you actually undertake a role in a formation headquarters or battle group, or when you undertake the relevant courses within the training continuum itself. The first point is the synchronisation matrix. What we've seen, a common pitfall, is that the synchronisation matrix is weak at the end of COA dev. If that is the case, what occurs is that the COAs are not fully developed. If you go into wargame with an undeveloped COA, you are going to fall short. There is no substance to it. The key takeaway is that by the end of COA dev, you receive your commander's guidance at the end of the COA dev brief and those amendments are made. But we're talking refinements to the sync matrix. If you are making major structural changes just prior to the war game, you need to pause, tell the Chief of Staff, and buy more time. If you go into a war game with underdeveloped COAs, you're wasting everyone's time. Same for the enemy sit temps. The S2 must have a completed enemy sit temp to the same standard as the 3. Moving on to the S2 and S3 relationship. They need to talk. Nothing is done in isolation. So the reason why I reference the fully developed COAs up front, this is facilitated by the dialogue between the S2 and S3, and more often than not, they should be working in the same environment, questioning each other throughout the process and making sure each are on track. Working in isolation will bring the planning process unstuck very quickly. Formalising the process. This is a formalised activity. The Chief of Staff must run it in terms of strict criteria and adherence to doctrine. Moving on to don't reinforce failure. Follow the drill. If you start to identify faults or major structural changes throughout the war game itself, and you try and fix those on the move, you'll normally be unsuccessful and you'll have to start again. So again, it links back to making sure that you come in with fully developed colours so that you don't start down the rabbit hole of reinforcing failure. And a way of ensuring that you don't is simply follow the drill.